But what I want to do is I want to talk about roles in studios and specifically talk about what is a producer. So you'll hear that term, you'll hear producer, interchangeable with like music producer, record producer. And the question is like, what is that, right? So a producer's role is to essentially ensure that a creative project goes from the concept, the idea, to an actual finished song. So whether it's a single, whether it's an album, their job is to get it from a concept to a finished product. And that can look like a lot of different things. It really depends on what the project is, right? So in larger budgets, larger studios, that looks like everything from hiring the studio, hiring the recording engineer, maybe hiring guest musicians or session musicians. It could be a somebody that's not a part of the band or somebody outside of the normal creative process that their job now is it's an outside perspective, right? They're giving creative advice. Like you might have a band that they think, one certain song is that's their hit song. That's the one. And this other song that they didn't really like or didn't really think of, that one winds up being really what is the hit song and what's going to be best. And so that producer, their job is to like I always say, I'm an audio engineer, I'm a producer, and I always say my job is to if you're my client, my job is to make you the best version of you. It's not to make you sound like me, it's to make you sound like the best that you can sound. And so that's essentially what a producer is in that sense. So their job is to to make you the best version of you, right? They again, if it's a large studio project, they can work really closely with say like the executive producer who's handling the finances. The executive producer is the one getting the budget, working with a record label or whoever's financing it, figuring out what the budget is, and then helping facilitate working with the producer to stay within that budget to make sure everybody gets paid, to hire the engineer that fits the budget, the studio that fits the budget, things like that. So that's the general term, but the term producer is, especially in today's environment, is all over the place because we are in the age of big format studios has really kind of gone away because technology has come so far that it empowers a lot of artists to create music on their own in their bedroom. Um, they don't necessarily have to have that big studio. So in today's environment, that term producer can mean a lot of things because if you're in an indie studio or if you're in a home studio, um, that producer is now wearing a lot of hats. The producer might also be the one engineering it. It also might be the one who made the beat for the song. It could be um, one person wearing a lot of hats. What what that's caused is that a lot of people think like, oh, a producer is the same as an engineer. The producer is the one that is mixing the album and they're the one mastering the album when that's not the case. You have engineers that are doing the mixing and mastering. And like I said, a producer may also be an engineer. I'm a producer, I'm also an engineer. So it does happen. And then we see a little bit more confusion when it comes to like hip hop and EDM. So electronic based music, hip hop, EDM, even industrials, but more hip hop and EDM, you'll see the term producer interchange with the beat maker. Somebody that's working on a DAW, they're either writing the music or they're using samples or loops and they're putting it together and adding in their own flavor and they're creating that song. That's the beat maker. It's technically not the producer, but you're going to hear that person called the producer a lot, especially in hip hop, especially in EDM. So, yeah, I mean that is what a producer is, I'm going to do a few more of these this week where I want to get into more specifics of like what different roles in the industry are. So, whether it's an recording engineer, mixing engineer, things like that. On Facebook, Scumlove says Rick Rubin's not an engineer, but is a producer. Um, And Joe Virus says, yeah, the term gets thrown around loosely in that scene. So yeah, to Scum's point, so Rick Rubin's a great example. I think was it Piers Morgan? I don't know. I can't remember who it was, but there's an interview where Rick Rubin was going around and he was talking, and he asked him, he said, are you a musician? He said, barely. Are you an audio engineer? He said, absolutely not. He said, I have absolutely almost no technical ability. And they said, well, what do people hire you for then if you don't have any technical ability? And he says, to put it simply, he said, oh, people hire me for my taste. And I mean, that's about as simplified as you can get that. And it's true. They're hiring him because he brings that outside perspective and he can make suggestions. Immediately with Rick Rubin, I think of the story of System of Down, and they were stuck on this one part of a song. And Rick Rubin points to a bookshelf and says, hey, just grab a book, any book, flip to any page. I want you to read whatever that line is. And he reads it, and they wind up just putting this random line from a random book onto the album. And it's like one of the catchiest parts of the song, So outside of the box ideas like that, again, ultimately, you're making that artist the best version of themselves. So, yeah, so that's a producer. And I'm a producer. Again, my name's Seven Dunbar, producer, audio engineer. This is my podcast. Yes, Quit Your Day Job. I will see you all later.